Get ready. We're about to embark on a journey full of unsolved mysteries. Remember that strange feeling when you're sorting through old things in your attic and accidentally find a yellowed magazine from the distant 1980s? Now imagine something different. Imagine not just opening a box of old junk, but cracking the seal of a pyramid locked for 4,000 years. And what appears before your eyes is a scene of utter chaos, frozen in time. We are transported to the Dasha Desert. This place has already gone down in history as the site of architectural experiments by the great pharaoh Sneferu, who reigned around 2600 BC. It was under his watchful eye that three colossal structures were erected: the famous Bent Pyramid, the majestic Red Pyramid, and the enigmatic pyramid at Meidum. And now, in the shadow of these giants, archaeologists have stumbled upon another, much smaller but remarkably well-preserved structure. This pyramid was sealed so securely, as if its builders intended it to remain hidden from human sight forever. It all began with a routine discovery by workers at a local quarry. They discovered several limestone blocks crafted with incredible precision unimaginable at the time. A scientific expedition was immediately assembled, led by Dr. Chris Naunton, a British Egyptologist and a veritable treasure trove of knowledge about the ancient world. The entire process of opening the tomb was documented on video. When the researchers finally penetrated, they found themselves in an underground burial chamber that had remained untouched for 4 millennia. Perhaps, at that first moment, the ethereal aroma of burial oils still lingered in the air, or perhaps it was merely the scent of centuries-old dust. However, instead of a picture of regal peace and majestic decor, the archaeologists encountered a veritable scene of destruction. Artifacts were smashed, valuables scattered as if a wild hurricane had swept through. And this, despite the tomb being hermetically sealed. The team of researchers had a terrible suspicion. The robbery had been committed by someone within the tomb. The tomb had been plundered even before it was officially closed. Imagine the scene: a thief robbing his own home, then calmly locking the door behind him as he left. Dr. Naunton aptly described the place as an ancient crime scene. Among the rubble and debris, they discovered a broken wooden chest that had once held canopic jars, ritual vessels. Using cutting-edge scanning technology, scientists were able to decipher the barely visible, half-erased hieroglyphs, and the inscriptions revealed the identity of the one who rested there, a princess named Hatshepsut. But don't jump to conclusions. We're not talking about the famous female pharaoh who ruled Egypt. This was a different Hatshepsut, a mysterious princess about whom absolutely no records survive. She left behind not a single statue, not a single written record. And yet, this ghostly woman had her own pyramid, an incredible luxury that not even all-powerful pharaohs enjoyed. Researchers theorize that she lived during the turbulent era of the 13th dynasty, a period in Egyptian history fraught with chaos, political intrigue, and power struggles. Here, in this plundered tomb, lies a nameless princess, whose final resting place was desecrated, sealed, and consigned to oblivion. What caused this sacrilege? A brutal struggle for the throne? A political purge that erased her name from history after her death? Or was it the simple greed of the burial crew, determined to appropriate the treasures for themselves? The mystery remains buried beneath the sands. Now, let's move on to another monument, whose mystery excites minds no less: the Great Sphinx. For centuries, it remained one of the most enigmatic symbols of the ancient world, generating endless debate and theories. But what if we ask the incredible question: what if no one created it? What if this famous monument was carved not by human hands, but by the forces of nature itself, wind and rain, over millennia? A small group of scientists from New York University has dared to put forward a hypothesis that could upend our entire understanding of the Sphinx's origins. Traditionally, we believe the Sphinx's face was the work of skilled ancient stonemasons. The very idea that nature could have created something so perfect seems absurd. After all, the wind couldn't possibly have carved the giant faces of presidents on Mount Rushmore out of rock. However, the debate is not about the head, but about the body of the Sphinx. How could such a massive sculpture, resembling a reclining lion, have arisen naturally? A unique experiment was conducted at New York University's Applied Mathematics Laboratory. Scientists recreated conditions similar to desert winds by simulating erosion on clay hills using water flows. The results were simply stunning. Over time, erosion naturally formed a miniature figure strikingly similar to the Sphinx, without a single instrument, simply by the laws of physics and the movement of water. This discovery leads us to a shocking thought. Nature may have created the prototype of the Sphinx long before humans began to refine it. A team of scientists suggests that several thousand years ago, when the ancient Egyptians arrived in these lands, they encountered a rock whose outlines already resembled a giant cat. Perhaps all they had to do was carve a human face onto the existing natural masterpiece. However, this is far from the only mystery surrounding the Sphinx. Geologist Robert Schoch has hypothesized that the monument may be as old as 12,000 years, significantly older than the generally accepted estimate of 4,500 years. Ukrainian geologists have gone even further, claiming that, based on erosion data, the Sphinx could be as old as 800,000 years. This means it was created in an era before modern humans even existed. In those ancient times, only ancient hominids, giant hippos, and saber-toothed tigers inhabited this land. If this is true, then the crucial question arises: who built the Sphinx? Some theories veer into the realm of fantasy, suggesting that the ancient Egyptians possessed vibration technology. They supposedly used sound waves to lift and move multi-ton stone blocks, as if they possessed knowledge millennia ahead of our time. Swedish scientist Olaf Alexandersson once suggested that sound could indeed defy gravity, but such technology remains only in the realm of bold speculation. The idea that a mysterious archive is hidden beneath the Sphinx continues to excite researchers. Numerous laser scans have revealed anomalies beneath the monument that may indicate the presence of a vast underground chamber. Legend speaks of the so-called Hall of Chronicles, a mysterious chamber said to contain the true history of humanity, knowledge of ancient technologies, spiritual practices, and even the history of the lost city of Atlantis. Some believe this room contains scrolls similar to those found near the Dead Sea. The legend of the Hall of Records originates from the visions of Edgar Cayce, an American psychic who lived in the mid-20th century. It was his predictions that inspired many to search for a hidden archive beneath the Sphinx. Ancient legends also mention how the Greek sage Solon visited Egypt. There, he allegedly entered a secret chamber where a priest told him the story of Atlantis, which was later recorded by his descendant Plato. The bulk of this theory relies on geological research and ultrasound scanning. Robert Schoch, the same proponent of the 12,000-year-old Sphinx, reported the discovery of a rectangular cavity beneath the monument using sonar back in the 1990s. The discovery, directly beneath the Sphinx's left paw, attracted enormous public attention. However, Egyptian authorities quickly halted all research, although scientists later confirmed the existence of this tunnel. In 1989, a team of Japanese researchers from Waseda University, led by Professor Sakuji Yoshimura, discovered another tunnel, which, like an ancient underground passage, led toward the Pyramid of Khafre. But here, too, history repeated itself. The Egyptian government soon suspended all work, citing the need to preserve the monument. The Japanese team was never allowed to return, and the purpose of this tunnel remains a mystery to this day. Local legends claim that the Sphinx is merely an outer shell, and the true secret lies deep underground, in a secret chamber between its paws or even within its head. And recent scans, indicating the presence of subterranean structures beneath the entire pyramid complex, only heighten the intrigue. What really lies there? Egypt continues to jealously guard these monuments, as if they truly were the guardians of history's greatest secret. And while the debate rages, the mysteries of ancient Egypt continue to captivate us, and the Sphinx remains one of humanity's greatest unsolved mysteries. And the mysterious skull of Pharaoh Akhenaten only adds new questions to this endless list. The civilization of ancient Egypt is shrouded in mysticism. The true reasons for the construction of the pyramids, their true purpose, the Egyptians' astonishing knowledge of engineering, agriculture, medicine, and astronomy, all of this still generates heated debate. Their monumental achievements are so impressive that they make one wonder, did they receive outside help? Perhaps from extraterrestrial civilizations. This theory, actively fueled by TV series like Ancient Aliens, is gaining popularity. People wonder, could ancient Egyptian art be evidence of alien contact? Proponents of this theory often point to specific bas-reliefs and sculptures as evidence. One of the most striking examples is the depiction of Pharaoh Akhenaten. His appearance in ancient frescoes is striking. An unnaturally elongated skull, a strange, almost feminine build, and a disproportionately large belly. This is how we see Akhenaten, the reformist ruler of ancient Egypt. Professor Erwin Braverman of the Yale School of Medicine has noted that Akhenaten is consistently depicted with a thin neck, a head pulled back, wide hips, large breasts, and a belly that protrudes forward, creating the illusion of pregnancy. A Michigan State University anthropology blogger drew attention to the pharaoh's very name. Akhenaten translates as sun disk. This led him to believe that this disk could symbolize nothing less than an unidentified flying object. If these bold speculations are to be believed, the pharaoh could indeed have arrived from this very disk. Another bas-relief, depicting Akhenaten's family, raises even more questions. It depicts his children with the same elongated heads and strange facial features as their father. The adults, however, wear tall headdresses, leading some to speculate that they are concealing their unusual skulls. Imagine the lifeless sands of the Mediterranean coast, where only a warm breeze breaks the silence. Here, beneath the layers of time, lay a profound secret, unsuspected even by those who had lived on this land for generations. Not far from where modern Alexandria now stands, on a rocky plateau, archaeologists made a discovery that forced them to rethink history. They stumbled upon the ruins of an entire Egyptian city. And this wasn't just a chaotic scattering of ancient stones. Researchers discovered a once bustling metropolis, shrouded in a fog of mysteries, leading to one of the most enigmatic women in history, the daughter of the legendary Nefertiti. This settlement is estimated to be approximately 3,500 years old. Its origins likely coincided with the reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten, a renowned religious reformer considered a heretic by many for his worship of the single sun god, Aten. This place, known today as El Murer, is wedged between the azure waters of the Mediterranean Sea and the salty Lake Mariot. For a long time, scientists considered this area deserted and insignificant, believing that life only began here with the arrival of the Greeks in 332 BC. But, as it turns out, they were sorely mistaken. Sylvain Denis of the French National Center for Scientific Research confirmed that this was not just a camp, but a carefully planned city with a sophisticated rainwater drainage system. Ancient civilizations, as we know, always understood that control over water resources was the key to prosperity. At the very heart of the city stood a temple built by the great Ramses II. Surrounding it, like a mighty armor, were a military fortress, administrative buildings, and impenetrable defensive walls. A glimpse of a long-gone era began to emerge from oblivion, but the most astonishing find, the true key to the mystery, was a tiny shard of a wine jug. It bore an inscription mentioning the name Meritaten, the daughter of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, and possibly the half-sister of Tutankhamun himself. Meritaten is one of the most shadowy and influential figures in ancient Egyptian history. Her life is a complete blank spot, though her power is undeniable. There are bold theories that she married the enigmatic Pharaoh Smenkhkhere, and likely ruled Egypt for a time under an incredibly complex throne name. Excavations at the lost city continue, and its true size remains a mystery. It doesn't even have an official name. Some researchers believe it was the personal royal city of Meritaten. Others, however, advance an even bolder hypothesis. Perhaps this metropolis belonged to Queen Nefertiti herself. Mysteries continue to hover over this land, which holds traces of one of the most powerful and enigmatic women of the ancient world. Let's move to the banks of the mighty Nile, near Aswan. In early 2019, archaeologists uncovered a new mystery. They discovered a tomb belonging to a man named Titus. Inside, amid the remains of a wooden sarcophagus, a veritable city of the dead awaited them. The remains of at least 30 mummified bodies, including children. This tomb, built between the 6th century BC and the 1st century AD, turned out to be a veritable treasure trove: ceramic vessels, amphorae for burial food, fragments of ritual masks, biers for bodies, and a remarkable figurine of a bird with a human head, the so-called bar bird, a symbol of the soul embarking on an eternal journey. Massive sarcophagi stood directly at the entrance to the tomb. Nearby, archaeologists discovered a whole set of embalming instruments, remnants of cartonnage, pieces of bitumen resin, and even an ancient lamp. This tomb is just one of 300 located in a vast necropolis surrounding the mausoleum of the Aga Khan, the spiritual leader of the Ismailis. But the identity of Titus himself and his mysterious connection to dozens of other interred remains a mystery that remains to be solved. Now let's head 40 kilometers south of Cairo, into the heart of the desert. Here, under the scorching sun, two monumental structures rise, the Bent Pyramid and its smaller companion. These stone giants are approximately 4,600 years old. They were built by order of Pharaoh Sneferu, founder of the 4th dynasty, during the era known as the Old Kingdom. The Bent Pyramid is a unique architectural experiment, carved in stone. Reaching 101 meters in height, it represents a transitional stage between the step pyramid of Djoser and the perfectly smooth pyramids of Giza. It received its unusual name due to its bizarre shape. Construction began at a 50-degree angle, but halfway through, the ancient engineers, likely fearing collapse, abruptly changed the angle to 40 degrees. This is how the characteristic curve, which defies all canons, was created. The exact location of Pharaoh Sneferu's final resting place remains unknown. However, many Egyptologists are convinced that his mummy may still rest within the depths of this strange structure. In mid-2019, after decades of restoration, the pyramid opened its doors to adventurers for the first time since 1956. Now, travelers can descend through the northern entrance, navigate an 80-meter-long cramped corridor, and enter two mysterious burial chambers. Nearby, they can also see an 18-meter-tall satellite pyramid, believed to have been built for Sneferu's wife, Queen Hetepheres. In northeastern Egypt, time has preserved another message from the past. Archaeologists have unearthed a 3,200-year-old tomb. It is believed to be the final resting place of a high-ranking military commander who served under Ramesses III, the last great pharaoh of the New Kingdom. The mud brick tomb is striking in its size, resembling more an underground palace than a traditional crypt. A gold ring bearing Ramesses' name, a set of deadly bronze arrowheads, and numerous other funerary artifacts were found inside. All these finds, like silent witnesses, indicate that one of the pharaoh's most senior commanders was buried here. This discovery is of colossal significance. After all, it is Ramesses III who history remembers as the commander who stopped the invasion of the mysterious and ruthless Sea Peoples. This means that the man buried here could have been a key player in one of the most monumental battles of the entire Bronze Age. Imagine the year 1175 BCE. Egypt is at the height of its power, reveling in military victories, but dark clouds are gathering on the horizon. A new threat is approaching from the sea, the so-called Sea Peoples, a ghostly horde bent on destruction. The identity of this coalition remains a mystery. Historians believe it was a powerful confederation of naval warriors, a veritable tsunami sweeping away everything in its path. They had already crushed the Hittites, Mycenaeans, and Mitanni, reducing great civilizations to dust. Their next target was wealthy Egypt. But Ramses III was a brilliant strategist. He set a deadly trap for the invaders. The pharaoh allowed their fleet to enter the Nile Delta, where a fiery barrage of thousands of arrows rained down on the enemy ships from both banks. At the same time, the Egyptian fleet attacked the enemy from the front. A brutal massacre began. In a bloody ambush, the invincible Sea Peoples were completely exterminated. Egypt stood firm. The generals who helped Rameses achieve this incredible victory were undoubtedly generously rewarded. Magnificent tombs filled with spoils of war were likely built for them, and here before us is one such tomb. Professor Anthony Spalinger and Egyptologist David Warburton admit that without a clear inscription with the commander's name, they cannot be 100% certain. Nevertheless, every artifact discovered screams of the presence of a warrior invested with immense power. Archaeologists are confident they have found the tomb of a man who played a key role in defending Egypt at a time when the world around them was collapsing like a house of cards. In mid-2018, an Egyptian-German expedition stunned the world with its discovery in Saqqara, the ancient city of the dead. They discovered an entire burial complex, an embalming workshop, several tombs, numerous mummies, and the crown jewel, a gold-covered silver mask. Here in Saqqara, the earth is riddled with dozens of burial shafts, reaching depths of up to 30 meters. The silver mask, inlaid with calcite, obsidian, and other precious stones, was created over 2,500 years ago. It is one of the oldest artifacts of its kind. Lead archaeologist Ramadan Badri Hussein called this find truly revolutionary. He emphasized that such masks made of precious metals are incredibly rare today, as the tombs of the ancient aristocracy were ruthlessly plundered many centuries ago. This mask belonged to a mummy found in a heavily damaged wooden coffin adorned with an image of the goddess Mut. Judging by the surviving hieroglyphs, this man was a priest who served this powerful goddess. Inside the embalming workshop itself, built of mud brick and limestone, the team found numerous bowls and measuring cups. They bore labels with the names of the chemicals used in the sacred mummification process. There were also 2 enormous pools where bodies were likely processed before being sent into eternity. Other mummies were found beneath the workshop itself. Excavations at this site are ongoing, and who knows what other secrets the sands of Saqqara hold. Now let's travel far north to France, to a place many call the most magical on the planet, Mont Saint-Michel. After Paris, it's the most visited place in the country, and it's easy to see why. Mont Saint-Michel is a medieval abbey perched like a crown on a granite cliff. This island fortress, resembling a giant pyramid, towers over a tiny village with ancient houses clinging to its foot. A unique place, covering just 7 hectares, its history began in 708 AD, when the first modest church dedicated to the Archangel Michael was built here. Later, a more majestic chapel was built in its place. Let's travel back in time to the 10th century AD. Here, on a rocky island, 300 years after the first settlements, the first stones are laid for a grand Benedictine abbey destined to stand for 1,000 years. The centuries will leave their scars, architects will make changes and additions, but its fundamental, austere appearance will remain virtually intact. Imagine, many of the elements we see today were here from the very beginning. These powerful fortifications, which transformed Mont Saint-Michel into a truly impregnable citadel, were erected back in the 10th century. Their sole purpose was to protect the sacred abbey and the medieval village spread at its foot from the furious raids of the English. Now let's travel to the other side of the world, to Japan, where Himeji Castle stands tall on a hilltop. It could be called Japan's answer to Bavarian Neuschwanstein, or perhaps it was the very inspiration for Disney's fairy tale castles. It took nearly 30 years to build, from 1581 to 1609, and since then it has stood majestic and impregnable, evoking awe and admiration. Its central tower soars 6 stories into the sky, and its wide, curved, tiled roofs create an atmosphere that involuntarily conjures up images of silent ninja warriors gliding under the cover of night. This castle complex is a true masterpiece of fortification. 2 deep moats, towering stone walls that, legend has it, put even the bravest conquerors to flight with their mere appearance, and architecture that embraces all the traditions of the land of the rising sun. Painted in exquisite shades of white and grey, Himeji Castle has become an enduring symbol of the power and grandeur of feudal Japan. Its construction was begun by Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the legendary military leader who effectively ruled the country from 1537 to 1698. It was Hideyoshi who, with an iron fist, united fragmented Japan in the 15th century, reformed the class system, changed taxation, restored ancient temples, and built castles that still capture the imagination. But the most striking thing about Himeji is its defensive system. The fortress itself consists of 3 buildings surrounding a central tower. They are designed like a deadly labyrinth, with hidden passages and false routes to confuse any enemy. If invaders ever managed to breach the fortress, they would find themselves trapped, while the defenders could unleash a barrage of arrows and blades from hidden loopholes and camouflaged observation posts, and now a completely different story, from the depths of time. Not far from the ruins of the ancient city of Volubilis, archaeologists have stumbled upon the remains of a Roman watchtower, and this discovery has opened a whole new chapter in the study of bygone eras. No one knows exactly when it was built, but its location and sophisticated defensive strategy speak to the incredibly advanced level of Roman military engineering. This tower stood on the southernmost border of the Roman province of Mauritania Tingitana. This region was once under complete Roman military control, the furthest outpost of their vast empire. Scholars believe Rome held this territory beginning in the 1st century AD. Today, only the stone foundations of the tower remain, but 2,000 years ago it stood proudly above the surrounding plains like a solitary sentinel. Legionnaires likely used it to monitor caravans and tribal movements across the border. This was neither a majestic castle nor a fairy tale village, but a rugged, remote outpost on the very edge of the Roman world. The tower was built on the edge of the desert, in a place where the influence of Great Rome was practically non-existent. To cross the border here was to step into uncharted lands, beyond the authority and laws of the empire. For a Roman soldier sent here to serve, it must have felt like exile to the ends of the earth, to a place forgotten by gods and men. At the end of 2019, the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities made a sensational announcement that made headlines around the world. For the first time in history, the mummies of 2 lion cubs had been discovered on Egyptian soil. This incredible discovery was made by an archaeological team led by Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, in the renowned Saqqara necropolis. The tomb containing the lion cubs turned out to be a true feline sanctuary. Each of the predators measured approximately 90 centimeters in length, suggesting they were still cubs at the time of their death. Nearby lay the mummies of 3 other large cats. Scientists have not yet identified their species, but suggest they may have been leopards or cheetahs. Additionally, about 20 mummies of smaller cats and over 100 figurines depicting these animals, crafted from wood, stone, and even bronze, were discovered in the tomb. Experts date the tomb to approximately 2600 BC, corresponding to the 26th dynasty. A magnificent statue of the cat goddess Bastet, carved from black ebony, was found inside. But that's not all. Archaeologists also discovered the largest scarab ever found in Egypt, over 30 centimeters in diameter. Previous excavations in the area have uncovered numerous mummies and cat statues, confirming that this area was once the center of a cat-worshipping cult during this ancient dynasty. Bodiam Castle in England looks like it's straight out of ancient legend. It seems like the perfect place for King Arthur to gather with his knights of the Round Table. and for the wizard Merlin to cast his spells from its high stone walls. The castle was built in an incredibly short time, between 1381 and 1385, by a local aristocrat named Sir Edward Dalingrig. It was a turbulent and terrible time for England. The Black Death, or Plague, swept across the country in 1348, leaving in its wake famine, death, and social chaos. In the second half of the 14th century, England was also embroiled in a bloody war with France. For the common people, it was a time of suffering, but for the nobility, who had amassed fortunes from the war, new opportunities opened up. Sir Edward grew rich from his military campaigns, and in 1392, King Richard II himself appointed him Warden of London. This allowed him to ascend to the very pinnacle of English society, and his castle became a tangible, formidable symbol of his power and wealth. Bodiam is one of the few English fortresses that has survived almost in its original form. Located in East Sussex, it is open to visitors. You can stroll through the courtyard and enjoy views of the vast moat surrounding the fortress. Access was only possible via a single bridge spanning the water. A deep and wide moat made any attack virtually impossible. Attackers would have needed boats just to reach the walls, enduring a barrage of arrows from the defenders. For any potential invader, Bodiam was an insurmountable barrier. It was a fortress that refused to surrender. Each of these stories is a window into a bygone era, full of mysteries and incredible discoveries. Share in the comments which of these fragments of the past touched you most. Which of these amazing places or discoveries would you like to learn more about? It can be assumed that these headdresses served not only as a symbol of power, but also as a way to conceal the unusual, elongated shape of the skull. Of course, this is not direct evidence that Pharaoh Akhenaten's family was of extraterrestrial origin. A more mundane theory also exists. Perhaps members of the royal dynasty deliberately resorted to artificially deforming their skulls. This ritual was widespread in many ancient cultures. Another hypothesis holds that Akhenaten's entire family may have been carriers of a rare genetic disorder that caused such anomalies. Regardless, these enigmatic images continue to excite researchers and give rise to the most daring theories. Professor Breverman puts forward his theory. Akhenaten's elongated skull is most likely the result of a genetic mutation causing craniosynostosis. Simply put, this is a condition in which the skull bones fuse too early, preventing the head from growing properly. The scientist emphasizes that similar anomalies were observed in many of the pharaoh's relatives, including his daughters and even two other famous rulers, Queen Hatshepsut and the young Tutankhamun. All this points to the hereditary nature of this trait. Fast forward to the moment when the gigantic statue of Ramses II, already installed on the wall, crashed to the ground with a deafening roar. The impact was so powerful that the entire royal cavalry and army depicted on the monument shattered into pieces that seemed impossible to reassemble. But the archaeologists did not give up. For nearly a century, the shattered statue of Ramesses II lay in the sands of the Egyptian desert, resembling the world's largest broken toy. It was only in 1930 that German archaeologist Harold Roeder stumbled upon these majestic ruins. The lower part of the Colossus was recovered, but it was located 240 kilometers south of Cairo, and its head was missing. For 96 long years, no one could guess the whereabouts of the upper part of this stone giant. Then, in March 2024, a joint Egyptian-American archaeological mission made an incredible discovery. The missing fragment was finally found near the modern city of El Ashmunain. In ancient times, this site was the site of the city of Camina, a crucial center of the Old Kingdom, which the Romans renamed Hermopolis magna millennia later. The discovered upper half of the statue reaches a height of 3.5 meters, meaning the full monument towered over 7 meters. And before us is not just a shapeless stone block with a barely recognizable face. No. This is Ramesses the Great himself in all his splendor, wearing his royal crown surmounted by a sacred uraeus cobra. His image radiates such majesty that Michelangelo's famous David seems like a mere graceful statuette. Imagine the archaeologists' delight when, in January 2024, they first discovered this upper half, lying face down. Their astonishment was caused by the incredible state of preservation of the find. It was like opening a time capsule sealed 90 years ago and discovering inside not sand and disappointment, but a true treasure. The pharaoh's face was carved with such skill that its distinctive features are unmistakable, and the surviving traces of blue and gold paint are a truly rare find for such ancient monuments. Now scientists face the monumental task of reuniting the two halves of the statue. While the upper half has been found, the lower half remains at El Ashmunain. An Egyptian archaeologist named Bassem Gehad has already submitted an official request for permission to carry out this historic reunification. And if the project is approved, who would dare refuse the King of Kings even after 3,000 years? The great pharaoh will be restored to his integrity, and you can travel to Egypt to see one of the most impressive statues ever created. Now let's travel to a completely different world, to the cold fjords of Norway, where the Viking village of Borgund lies on the coast. For centuries during the Middle Ages, this place was more than just a settlement, but a vital transport and trade hub, the true heart of Viking maritime life. What this civilization left behind in Borgund are more than just the ruins of stone foundations. Before us are veritable cultural layers, overlapping and telling the story of a coastal community constantly transformed by the harsh natural environment and the turbulent events of Northern Europe. Archaeological excavations yielded tens of thousands of finds, including personal items and, most interestingly, a huge number of leather shoes. This suggests a thriving leather industry, which likely not only provided for local residents, but was also an important export item. The remains of artisan workshops and warehouses were discovered right next to residential areas and the seaport in Borgund. This demonstrates that the city was well organized and made effective use of its advantageous geographic location. Animal bone fragments found in the Borgund area only confirm the obvious. The local population's lives were inextricably linked to the sea. Fishing played a key role in the region's economy. Excavations also revealed imported goods, such as fine glassware and metalwork, brought from the distant Baltic region. This is compelling evidence that Borgund was closely intertwined with the network of international trade routes of the Middle Ages. The disappearance of this prosperous village was the result of a tragic confluence of environmental and social factors. The terrible plague that swept across Europe also affected this region, significantly reducing the population and devastating many coastal settlements, including Borgund. Analysis of ancient plant remains found here also points to climate change. Winters became colder, and food became increasingly difficult to obtain, leading to instability in local society. The remains buried beneath the soil of Borgund reflect the very rhythm of life, social structure, production, and trade connections of this coastal Viking community, where nature and history always played a decisive role in the struggle for survival. The finds from Borgund not only help us understand the central role of Viking fishing villages in medieval Northern Europe, but also provide an opportunity to delve deeper into the processes of urbanization, decline, and adaptation that shaped that society on the threshold of a new era. Behold these ruins, guarding the ancient secrets of Israel. Before us are the remains of a grand temple complex, discovered in the heart of the Judean region. Its age is staggering, almost 5,000 years. Massive stone foundations, austere rows of vertical columns, and monolithic altars all silently testify to the grandeur and complexity of the rituals performed here. This monumental architecture began to appear precisely during the period when the first urban societies were replacing disparate tribes. The city itself, at the center of which this temple stood, shows all the hallmarks of a stable and prosperous settlement. This was a turning point in history, the transition from small agricultural communities to large, organized centers with an emerging social hierarchy and centralized authority. Artifacts found in the temple, such as pottery and wall fragments with intricate carvings and abstract patterns, are directly linked to religious beliefs and confirm the importance of deity worship in everyday life. The development of such a complex temple system not only met the spiritual needs of the population, but also facilitated the formation of centers of power, where the religious elite and local leaders managed resources and coordinated the lives of all surrounding communities. Stratigraphic studies, or the study of cultural layers, reveal the presence of defensive ditches, small furnaces for smelting metal, and a network of footpaths that connected residential areas with ritual centers, forming a tight economic and social network. It was during this period that the first evidence of international trade appears, such as precious stone beads brought from beyond the river valley. This demonstrates that trade links spanned vast territories. The presence of such large temple complexes in Judea marks the great transition from pre-urban societies to the true cities of the Middle East. Centralized religion and control over resources led to the formation of ruling classes, the development of trade, and the unification of small communities into larger social systems. This process became the impetus that led to the emergence of the first city-states and forever changed the course of human development. At the crossroads of ancient and modern civilizations, we see how underground worlds changed their purpose, transforming from fortresses into dwellings. Throughout human history, underground structures have served not only for defense, but also become an integral part of the urban fabric. One of the most striking examples of this is the gigantic underground city hidden beneath the Chinese capital, Beijing. This colossal system was designed in the 1960s under the personal orders of Chairman Mao Zedong. Initially, its purpose was one, to serve as a gigantic bomb shelter, capable of protecting millions from the horrors of a nuclear war during the height of the Cold War. A network of tunnels stretching for hundreds of kilometers and connecting key areas of the city runs deep underground in the Chinese capital. However, as time passed and the threat of global nuclear conflict waned, the purpose of these murky corridors began to change. By the end of the 20th century, amid the rapid growth of megacities and sky-high housing prices, some of these underground tunnels were converted into temporary housing for migrant workers and those who simply could not afford standard housing in the capital. Despite the perpetual lack of sunlight and the tiny spaces these underground dwellers face, for many, this remains the only affordable option in the vast city. According to recent estimates, around 1 million people find refuge in these cramped underground spaces. In Beijing, a whole world of living spaces, often without official status, lurk underground. City authorities have repeatedly attempted to control and restrict habitation in these subterranean environments. However, the pressing need for affordable housing maintains this underground world as an important and integral part of modern urban life. But beyond shelters and dwellings, the underground space conceals numerous mysterious places of immense geological and archaeological interest. One such wonder is the psychedelic salt mines. Let's travel deep underground into the bowels of the Ural Mountains. Here, hidden from sunlight, entire underground galleries stretch out, their walls painted by nature itself. Incredible psychedelic patterns appear before us, twisted spirals and colored stripes created by the rare mineral carnallite. These are not frescoes by ancient artists. They are the result of millions of years of slow, relentless geological work. A true miracle born in the darkness. These unique salt worlds, hidden from human eyes, are truly astounding. However, despite their incredible beauty and scientific value, access here is closed. Access to these caves is strictly prohibited due to safety concerns and current laws. This juxtaposition of human creations, underground workings, and pristine geological beauty not only demonstrates how civilization can adapt to the most challenging conditions. It opens a new chapter in our understanding of how our technologies interact with the planet's deep ancient processes. Like ghost towns, these abandoned mines stand silent witness to history, the struggle for survival, and humanity's eternal quest to peer beyond the horizon, whether into the depths of the Earth or into the depths of time. And in the world of paleontology, each such discovery is a portal into the past, allowing us to touch the evolutionary drama of life on our planet. One such incredible portal is a fossil deposit in Germany, a site recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site for its exceptional scientific importance. Imagine, this place is a true time capsule, preserving nearly intact layers of life from the Eocene epoch. Over tens of millions of years, thousands upon thousands of fossils have been found here, from the first mammals and ancient reptiles to birds, fish, insects, and even plants. These fossils paint a stunningly detailed picture of an entire ecosystem that existed at a time when the Earth's climate was much warmer than it is today. This is an invaluable archive that serves as the foundation for studying the origin and evolution of all life. Over the course of geological eons, the face of life on Earth has changed beyond recognition, and this section of the Cretaceous is like a natural chronicle capturing one of those moments. From the fossilized remains of tiny mammals and fish to the footprints of fearsome predators, each layer of rock allows us to decipher the history of evolution and understand how the climate and entire biosphere of our planet changed nearly 50 million years ago. Archaeological excavations are always a journey into the unknown, revealing the secrets of ancient civilizations. For example, in Israel, scientists made a breakthrough by discovering the first Philistine cemetery in history. This was a real sensation in the study of a people we knew primarily from biblical tales as fearsome warriors, compatriots of the giant Goliath. Until now, our understanding of their customs, beliefs, and social structure was extremely vague, but now their burial sites have been revealed. The diverse burial rituals, pottery found nearby, exquisite jewelry, weapons, and even traces of cremation. All of this has allowed us to glimpse into their world and significantly expand our understanding of their social hierarchy, religious practices, and beliefs about the afterlife. These artifacts help shed light on the origins of the Philistines and their connections with other great Mediterranean cultures, enriching our picture of the ancient world. Archaeology plays a special role in historical research. It not only opens doors to the distant past, but also immerses us in the wondrous world of ancient myths and legends. Take, for example, Bala Fort in Oman. It is more than just an impenetrable bastion that provided reliable protection for desert tribes. It is a place of power, shrouded in numerous folk beliefs about magic, jinn, and mysterious phenomena. Local legends still tell of supernatural events, powerful sorcerers, and even sacred relics supposedly hidden within the ancient walls of this fortress. Such stories enrich the cultural memory associated with this place and reflect the complex relationships between people, their faith, and mysticism, the forces that have shaped local communities for centuries. With each new discovery, be it a fossil pit, an ancient cemetery, or an ancient fort, we gain more than just physical evidence of the past. New horizons for understanding ourselves open up. These discoveries help us gain a deeper understanding of the paths of biological evolution, witness the rise and fall of ancient cultures, and tap into the spiritual and symbolic aspects of life that continue to influence the modern world. Ancient Islamic lore whispers of entire civilizations swallowed by the sands. One such legendary place is the city of Iram, also known as Ubar. The Quran mentions it as a city of lofty towers that once flourished amid the vast deserts of the Arabian Peninsula. This land preserves the legend of Iram, which is believed to have been punished by higher powers for the pride and sins of its inhabitants. Legends say the city was buried under tons of sand as a result of a terrifying sandstorm that raged for 7 nights and 8 days. Ancient Arabic texts describe this place as a veritable oasis, abundant with water and date palms, inspiring countless adventurers and scholars to search for the lost city. Only in the late 20th century, armed with a combination of textual research, fieldwork and remote sensing data were scholars able to trace ancient caravan routes and pinpoint the probable location of Iram with high accuracy. Ruins discovered in the Rub al-Khali region, known for its perpetually shifting dunes, include stone foundations, the remains of ancient wells, and fragments of everyday objects. These finds continue to reveal new chapters of history and help us better understand our past. A major city once stood on this site, a true metropolis of its time, controlling vital trade routes across the desert. Archaeologists have concluded that the city was buried beneath a thick layer of sand after its complex groundwater system was destroyed. It was this catastrophe that erased it from maps and memory. Only fragmentary references to it survive in epic poems and sacred texts. Some theories hold that Iram was a key hub for the trade of frankincense, spices, and luxury goods, linking east and west in the ancient world. The fall of this city signaled the end of an entire trading empire that had flourished for centuries. Interestingly, the story of Iram echoes the legend of Atlantis. Both tell of a sudden rise, a dizzying fall, and devastating natural disasters capable of wiping out entire societies, leaving behind only ruins buried under sand or water. Who knows? Perhaps tales of cities buried by the desert spread along ancient trade routes and, reaching the Mediterranean, inspired Plato himself to write his tale of Atlantis. Today, the ruins of Iram in Arabia serve as a formidable reminder of environmental disasters and their consequences for civilization. They are a link between ancient cultures and a timeless warning about the fragility of our world in the face of nature's inexorable power. Now let's travel even further back in time, to the very roots of humanity. One of the most recent and exciting discoveries that has shed light on our origins is the discovery of a new species of ancient human, Homo bodoensis. We learned of its existence thanks to the analysis of skulls discovered in Ethiopia. Just think about it. These remains are about 500,000 years old. They date back to the mid-Pleistocene. This discovery fills a huge gap in our knowledge, which anthropologists call the muddle in the middle, an incredibly complex and confusing period in evolution, when very different branches of our genus Homo coexisted, evolved, and disappeared simultaneously across the vast expanses of Africa and Eurasia. The bodoensis skull possesses many features that are not yet similar to those of modern humans, but already indicate an important transitional stage in our evolution. This species was a descendant of Homo erectus, the upright man, but did not yet possess the features inherent to us, Homo sapiens. Its anatomy, a large skull, low forehead, broad face, and massive jaws, all suggest adaptation to the harsh and variable climate of Africa at the time. The discovery of Homo bodoensis has helped fill gaps in our understanding of hominid evolution and revealed the remarkable diversity of ancient humans on the African continent. After all, at the same time, Neanderthals were already living in Europe, and the enigmatic Denisovans were in Asia. One of the main challenges of paleoanthropology is that fossil finds are extremely few and scattered, and vast swaths of the planet remain unexplored. Nevertheless, thanks to modern genetic analysis, scientists are beginning to understand the place of Homo bodoensis in our family tree. However, the central question, its role in the emergence of Homo sapiens, still remains open. The existence of multiple species of ancient humans who may have interacted and perhaps even interbred with each other creates an incredibly complex picture of evolution. This raises the possibility that many ancient human lineages remain undetected in the DNA of modern humans. The discovery of Homo bodoensis not only enriches our knowledge of human origins, but also underscores the Horn of Africa's role as the central cauldron in which human evolution was forged. Each new fossil found on this land forces us to rethink history and brings us closer to unraveling the greatest mystery of all, the origins of Homo sapiens and our place in this world. Returning to more recent times, let's recall the kingdom of Mitanni. It once controlled vast territories from the Tigris to the Euphrates, playing a key role in the geopolitical balance of power in the Middle East after the fall of ancient Babylon. Between the 16th and 14th centuries BC, Mitanni emerged as a powerful state, formed by a tribal alliance. Its inhabitants spoke the Hurrian language and forged complex diplomatic relations with the great empires of their time, Egypt, Babylon, and the Hittites. Thanks to its strategically advantageous position, the ancient kingdom of Mitanni managed to navigate between giant empires while maintaining its fragile independence. This made it a central figure on the chessboard of regional wars and political alliances. Among the greatest achievements of this civilization is their mastery of horse-drawn chariot warfare, a formidable force of the time. They were skilled weaponsmiths whose bronze blades struck terror into their enemies, and their diplomatic network, spanning the entire Middle East, was truly extensive. Evidence of this is found in clay tablets discovered in the Isman archives. This archive is a veritable treasure trove of correspondence between powerful ancient rulers. Egyptian, Hurrian, and Babylonian chronicles mention Mitanni as a formidable force to be reckoned with. This state entered into alliances, waged wars, sometimes acted as a cunning mediator, and sometimes became a coveted prey for invaders. But nothing lasts forever. By the end of the 10th century BC, dark clouds began to gather over Mitanni. The empire began to crumble, weakened by internal strife for the throne and relentless pressure from hungry neighbors. Assyria dealt the final crushing blow. Its ruthless military machine swept across the lands of Mitanni, reducing cities to ruins and wiping out centers of power. From the ashes of the old world, new centers of power, religion, and trade arose. The Hurrian nobility was either exterminated or dissolved among the conquerors, and the great culture of Mitanni disappeared forever from the political map. Today, our knowledge of this civilization comes from foreign sources, documents compiled by their enemies and allies, as well as archaeological finds. Excavations in ancient cities, including the capital of Wukani, whose exact location remains a mystery, provide only fragmentary information about the architecture, beliefs, and daily life of this once great kingdom. The ruins of Mitanni bear silent witness to the rapid rise and fall of the civilizations of the ancient Near East in a perpetual, bloody struggle for power, glory, and resources. Their history compels us to consider the fate of states built on fragile alliances when they face the inexorable might of centralized empires. Let's travel to another era and another place. Deep beneath the bustling streets of Naples lies a unique and eerie place, the Fontenelle Burial Cave. It is a striking monument to Europe's medieval heritage, a place where the tradition of mass burials intertwined with the creation of a unique spiritual space that has endured for centuries. Initially, this cave was merely a temporary solution to a terrible problem. When city cemeteries were overflowing, bodies of the dead began to be brought here. During the dark times when plague and other epidemics swept across Europe, the cave became the final resting place for countless people. Most of them fell silent, victims of disease and demographic collapse. Thus, this place became one of the largest repositories of human remains in all of southern Europe. The cave, a natural cavity widened by ancient quarries, proved an ideal underground space to house such a horrific number of bodies. But over time, practical necessity gave way to a unique ritual. Local residents developed a special mystical connection with the souls of those who had not found proper rest on consecrated ground. For generations, Neapolitans believed the bones in the cave possessed spiritual powers. They became a kind of bridge between the world of the living and the world of the dead, giving rise to fascinating folk beliefs. People came here to pray or make wishes. The practice of adopting nameless skulls became a true cultural phenomenon. Residents would give the skull a name, care for it, and believe its soul would become their protector. This astonishing custom continued until the late 20th century, when the site finally attracted the attention of the authorities and was opened to the public. Since then, it has become an integral part of the historical memory and identity of Naples. Today, the Fontenelle Cave is more than just an archaeological site. It is a piece of intangible heritage, a living testimony to the faith of an entire people. Its rituals, memorial services, and ongoing research continue to attract scholars, historians, and ordinary visitors, confirming its immense significance in the context of European social and spiritual history. Now, let's address one of the greatest mysteries facing humanity. Where did we come from? Who or what made us who we are today? If we turn to official history and archaeology, we see that the first seeds of civilization emerged in the fertile lands of Mesopotamia. But how did this happen? What compelled nomadic tribes of hunters and gatherers to suddenly begin building cities with impenetrable walls, invent mathematics and writing, and create complex systems of governance? How did humanity learn to control nature in such a short time, mastering agriculture? There's an ancient, nearly forgotten legend. It says that hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions, of years ago, a planet known as Nibiru wandered in the icy blackness of space. It wasn't a dead, lifeless rock. It moved along an incredibly long orbit, completing one revolution every many thousands of years. And on this planet lived a highly advanced civilization, which we know as the Anunnaki. But don't imagine them as friendly space explorers. Legends tell that the Anunnaki faced a planetary catastrophe. Their atmosphere was collapsing, and the only way to save their world lay in a single metal: gold. And then their gaze turned to our planet, to this shining blue-green sphere whose depths were filled with the precious metal. They arrived on Earth, established their bases, and began mining. But don't think these arrogant beings intended to get their hands dirty. They considered themselves too advanced for dirty physical labor. And at this critical moment, as legend has it, the two Anunnaki leaders, Enki and Ninmah, looking at the primitive ancestors of man, devised a truly terrifying plan. Legend has it that they began conducting genetic experiments. They tampered with the very essence of life, mixing their genetic code with that of ancient hominids. As a result of this experiment, we emerged, modern humans, artificially created for one purpose: to toil in gold mines for their masters. According to this shocking story, our very existence is a byproduct of a climate crisis on an alien planet. For a time, these god kings ruled Earth and then abandoned it, leaving us alone in a world they forever changed. This story forces us to take a completely new look at everything we know about our past. According to this theory, intelligent beings inhabited the Earth long before the biblical Adam. From the perspective of traditional religions, the Bible unequivocally states that Adam was the first man. Numerous cultures around the world share this belief. A divine being created the first man in his own image and likeness, laying the foundation for all humanity. However, there is another, far more daring theory known as the pre-Adamic hypothesis. It proposes that intelligent beings inhabited our planet long before Adam. Interestingly, this theory doesn't insist that these beings were similar to us. It merely suggests that they possessed comparable intelligence and built their own civilizations. They existed here on Earth, created their own societies, and perhaps left behind traces we are currently unable to find or understand. Adam, in this version, becomes the first officially recognized human, the bearer of the divine spark and the progenitor of our species. He was something entirely new, unlike those who came before him. This idea is not new. It dates back over 2,000 years. It was first documented in 170 AD, when an Egyptian pagan named Apollonius discussed the topic with the Christian theologian Theophilus of Antioch. This astonishing theory quickly gained popularity and spread throughout the region, even in the Roman Empire, until Emperor Julian the Apostate renounced Christianity and returned to pagan traditions. The idea of multiple first men was widespread. Fast forward a few centuries to the early Islamic period, around 900 CE. Here we see humans beginning to realize that they might not be the only intelligent beings walking this planet. It was believed that a race of jinn, intelligent beings that predated humans, had ruled the earth for at least 50,000 years. These concepts were quite popular among the people, though they were not officially sanctioned. For centuries, such views were branded heretical, and those who expressed them faced harsh consequences. Later, in 1591, the Italian philosopher Giordano Bruno brought this idea back into the open. Observing the astonishing diversity of human races around the world, he concluded that Jews and Ethiopians simply could not descend from a single common ancestor. Bruno dared to suggest that God created not one, but many Adams, each of whom became the progenitor of a distinct race, including those who could be descended from ancient, pre-Adamic beings. According to his theory, Adam could still be considered the first representative of our species, modern humans, but this also meant that he was not the first intelligent being on Earth. Now let's return to the Nile Valley, to the time of one of the most unusual pharaohs in the history of ancient Egypt. This ruler lived approximately 3,000 years ago. He reigned alongside his famous queen, Nefertiti, and was the father of Meritaten and the future king Tutankhamun. One morning, this pharaoh made a decision that shook the entire country to its foundations. He ordered the construction of a completely new city from scratch and proclaimed the advent of a new single god, whom all of Egypt was henceforth to worship. This pharaoh didn't just change the religious landscape, he turned the entire state upside down. He closed the ancient temples of the old gods, as if cancelling a boring television program. The name of this revolutionary pharaoh was Amenhotep, and he decided to replace all the gods. Imagine a single, incredibly ambitious predator deciding to change the age-old ways of its species. Let's go back to the late Cretaceous period. Giant lizards rule the world, and each species lives by laws honed over millions of years of evolution. But what if one leader, say the mighty Tyrannosaurus Rex, suddenly decides that all its kin should worship not the shady jungles that provide shelter and food, but the merciless, scorching sun of the open plains? Lands where countless generations of predators found food and safety are suddenly declared obsolete. This reformist leader, using his authority and sharp teeth, forces entire clans to abandon their homelands. He leads them to a new inhospitable place dedicated exclusively to his mad idea, open-air hunting. Paleontologists today are finding echoes of this drama. In places where tyrannosaurs typically didn't live, their remains are being discovered, testifying to a bizarre and massive migration. Imagine a lush valley teeming with life. Young dinosaurs play here, females incubate their eggs in nests, and males bring back prey. But one day, the will of a new leader intrudes on this idyll. He and his most loyal followers arrive with one order: leave immediately. There's no time to pack, no time to say goodbye to their homeland. Everyone must follow him into the sun-scorched wasteland. We see traces of this exodus in the fossil record: abandoned nests with unhatched eggs, the remains of those who perished in the hasty and arduous journey. Among these strange finds, paleontologists also uncover something astonishing, something ahead of its time. For example, evidence of unusual social behavior that seems impossible for that period. Perhaps these were the beginnings of a complex hierarchy, or even a primitive police within the pack, maintaining order with an iron grip. But the most astonishing discovery is the unique artifacts of that era. Scientists find a perfectly preserved fish fossil covered in a shiny mineral, as if someone had deliberately decorated it. Who did this, and why, remains a mystery. Buried beneath layers of time, perhaps the lands from which these exiled tyrannosaurs originated were inhabited by other fearsome predators, worshipped as deities. Perhaps these were the gigantic spinosaurs, Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, masters of the river valleys. When the tyrannosaur leader declared the open sun to be the sole deity, his followers were forced, against their will, to abandon their habitual fear and respect for the river monsters. But why did this ancient lizard take such a radical step? Perhaps it wasn't his own idea. Paleontologists speculate that his predecessor, his father, had already hatched plans to develop new hunting grounds. He simply emphasized the importance of open spaces, and his son took this idea to the point of absolute fanaticism, like a child who decided his game was the only right one. Ultimately, this revolutionary leader founded a new capital for his followers in a barren valley, where he led his entire clan. At first, everything seems stable, but soon chaos erupts. The new lands cannot support such a multitude of predators. Famine, disease, and civil strife begin. After the death of the heretical leader, his successor attempts to maintain the new order, but no one wants to remain in the cursed valley. The territory quickly falls into disrepair. The young ruler is forced to restore the old order. He leads the remnants of the clan back to their native jungle, restores their traditional hunting methods, and erases all memory of his predecessor's mad experiment. Temples to the scorching sun, if they ever existed, are destroyed by nature itself. The name of the reforming leader fades from the memory of generations, and his new religion is forgotten. Today, paleontologists can study only two types of fossils: those from the thriving valley and those from the dead wasteland, which bear witness to those distant and dramatic events. This story proves that the ancient world is more than just frozen skeletons in museums. It is a world of rapid migrations, power struggles, and ambitious leaders whose decisions influence the fate of entire populations. One such leader forced his people to abandon their homelands, destroyed their traditional way of life, and possibly drove his species to the brink of extinction in this region, and all this thanks to the will and determination of a single individual. But let's go further. Could dinosaurs have gone beyond simply following instinct and created their own civilization during their millions of years of dominance? This question may seem absurd, but consider it for a moment. There's a theory that technologically advanced dinosaurs could have been asteroid miners, and one day, either accidentally or intentionally, they could have dropped that gigantic meteorite on Earth that ended their era. Writer and scientist Peter Braun has put forward an even bolder hypothesis. What if dinosaurs' arsenal consisted not only of teeth and claws, but also computers and rocket fuel? In other words, what if intelligent dinosaurs with advanced technology became our distant ancestors? Let's fast forward to 66 million years ago. Perhaps in a secret laboratory, a white-coated Tyrannosaurus rex is desperately shouting to its fellows about an approaching asteroid, hurtling toward the planet like a courier package thrown over a fence. It sounds like science fiction, but what if this theory has some basis? Braun isn't claiming a prehistoric Silicon Valley existed, or that velociraptors, Velociraptor mongoliensis, developed nuclear weapons. That's not the point. The point is time, geological time. How fleeting humanity's existence is compared to the billions of years of our planet's history. According to Braun, if the dinosaurs had had their own Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, who launched an ambitious space program but made a fatal error in calculating the trajectory of an asteroid, thereby dooming their species, we wouldn't find a single trace of it today. Perhaps highly advanced reptilians once existed on Earth, experiencing their own space race, but now there remains no evidence of their former greatness. Time is inexorable, erasing all traces, like ocean waves washing away sandcastles. The planet is capable of completely renewing itself in a geological instant, even if the dinosaur civilization had perished in the fires of a global nuclear war. It would likely have been razed to the ground. The longest-lived radioactive isotope used in nuclear warheads decays in approximately 16 million years. No matter how monstrous the catastrophes of the past, Earth will swallow everything. This means that if the Triassic period had its own Manhattan Project, we would never have known about it. Braun's musings aren't just science fiction. They're an attempt to comprehend humanity's place in time. In just a few thousand years, we've radically altered the face of the Earth, blanketing it with plastic, concrete, and fossil fuel byproducts. But on a geological scale, our reign is a mere blip. Future archaeologists, and perhaps even superintelligent artificial intelligence, may never know we existed, just as we know nothing about the hypothetical lunar bases of our scaly predecessors. If humanity were to disappear right now, and millions of years from now, a new civilization of giant intelligent technocrats were to emerge on the planet, they would find absolutely nothing of us, not even the tiniest speck of radioactive dust from our nuclear tests. Dinosaurs ruled the earth long before God molded Adam from clay in the biblical myths. And they weren't the only ones. Earth has existed for so long that it could have been home to numerous civilizations, each rising and vanishing without a trace every few tens of millions of years, leaving no one to remember them. Now, let's look to the sky. What if ancient ruins are hidden not only beneath the layers of the Earth's crust, but also beneath the red sands of Mars? Let's cast aside our doubts. What if there were once cities on Mars? Not the glittering, futuristic megalopolises of science fiction films, but ancient structures buried beneath the sands, abandoned by a civilization older than humanity itself. Images sent back from Mars increasingly reveal strange, almost perfect geometric shapes, causing genuine confusion among researchers. Are these the ruins of ancient structures, or simply a bizarre quirk of nature? The great astronomer Carl Sagan once observed that the first irrefutable sign of intelligent life on the planet would be the appearance of structures with precise geometry. He spoke of straight lines, right angles, and symmetry, everything that points to intentional design, not the randomness of natural processes. Satellites and rovers have been traversing the red planet for decades, documenting strange mountain ranges, rectangular formations, and intersecting lines hidden beneath a thick layer of dust. One of the most famous examples is the so-called City of the Incas. NASA officially refers to it as a cluster of intersecting ridges at the south pole of Mars. But its architectural resemblance to terrestrial ruins was so striking that the name caught on immediately after its discovery in 1972. For over half a century, the City of the Incas on Mars has captivated scientists. Later, the Mars Global Surveyor spacecraft captured clearer images of the region, and many believe they only emphasize its man-made complexity. New, more detailed images, far from disproving this theory, have actually added fuel to the fire, revealing an even more complex and orderly structure. Mysterious formations have also been discovered in other regions of Mars, square patterns and blocky structures that seem to scream of artificial origin. NASA typically refers to them as natural geological formations. However, critics counter that when geometric shapes repeat themselves at a certain scale, it can't be a simple coincidence. It's important to remember that Mars wasn't always the dry, cold desert we see today. Billions of years ago, rivers flowed, lakes splashed, and perhaps even seas roared across its surface. In the distant past, Mars possessed a thick atmosphere and was in many ways reminiscent of the young Earth. This fact makes researchers view the strange Martian landscapes with even greater concern. Recent research has only confirmed this hypothesis. A team of scientists discovered that shallow lakes on Mars could have supported life for hundreds of millions of years. These bodies of water, once covered by solidified lava and then flooded with water, created ideal conditions for life to emerge and thrive. Take a look at Mars. In its thin atmosphere, NASA instruments have detected something extremely curious: unexplained spikes of methane. This discovery is heart-pounding, as on Earth, 90% of all atmospheric methane is a direct result of living things. As if that weren't enough, rovers have also discovered nitrogen on the red planet, a key element without which DNA and RNA molecules, the very foundation of life, cannot be created. And it is from this ground that perhaps the most astonishing and provocative theory of our time is born: Doctor. John Brandenburg, a plasma physicist, has come forward with a statement that sounds like the script of a science fiction epic. He has proposed that not just life, but advanced civilizations existed on Mars in ancient times. In his view, the discovered traces of uranium are more than just a geological anomaly. They are terrible scars left by two powerful nuclear explosions. But this, Brandenburg argues, was no natural disaster. It was cold-blooded, deliberate destruction. His theory paints a horrific picture. Thriving Martian civilizations were wiped off the face of the planet in a total genocide perpetrated by some unknown and hostile force from the depths of space. This assertion staggers the imagination. Brandenburg voices truly dangerous ideas. He claims that all the evidence points to a monstrous nuclear catastrophe that turned Mars into the lifeless wasteland we see today. Now, imagine for a moment, what if someone survived this nuclear apocalypse? What if a handful of refugees managed to escape, cross the cosmic abyss, and find refuge on Earth? Could they have become the ancestors of modern humanity? If there is even a grain of truth to this wild theory, it could upend our entire understanding of our origins and confound adherents of any traditional view. Let's now return to our planet, beneath the merciless rays of the sun scorching the sands of the Giza Desert. Here, in the eternal shadow of the Great Pyramids, a secret lies hidden. Archaeologists, armed with the most modern equipment, weren't looking for portals to other worlds. Their goal was far more prosaic: to find lost burial chambers and tombs of long-dead Egyptian rulers. However, instead, their instruments detected something entirely different. Almost 2 meters beneath the pyramid complex, they stumbled upon a structure with unnaturally clear outlines. And even deeper, a real surprise awaited them: a mysterious anomaly, a vast, empty space. Perhaps the very same Stargate, created by a civilization older than the pyramids themselves. This underground structure, discovered using ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistance sensors, aroused a mixture of intense curiosity and genuine alarm among the scientists. In a recent study published in a scientific journal, a team led by Matsuda Jisasata of Tohoku University reported the discovery of an L-shaped formation in the Western Cemetery of Giza. This site is known for its royal tombs, but it had never been fully explored. Beneath this L-shaped structure, a cavity extending to a depth of 5 to 10 meters was discovered. It had an abnormally high electrical resistance, which, in simple terms, means one thing: it isn't sand or rock, but a huge air pocket, a man-made empty chamber. This proves that the formation is not a coincidence or a freak of nature. Researchers are fascinated by the idea that this L-shaped object could be an entrance, a portal, deliberately carved into the rock thousands of years ago. But the main question remains unanswered. Where does it lead? It's the greatest mystery. Scientists can only speculate that this tunnel may lead to a colossal underground complex, unlike anything ever found in the area. This isn't just a random radar glitch, it's a carefully designed void, camouflaged as if its creators didn't want it to be discovered with our technology. You might think this is an exaggeration. After all, Egypt is full of secret chambers beneath the pyramids, but the uniqueness of this anomaly lies in its location. It's not beneath one of the pyramids, but in a completely empty stretch of desert, with no visible ruins on the surface, a place forgotten for millennia. Beneath the sand lies a void that someone deliberately concealed, as if trying to erase the very memory of it. Some believe this isn't a tomb at all. It's something entirely different: a sealed chamber, a corridor to another world, a gateway to the unknown. And if this is true, then ancient Egyptian myths take on new, far more sinister overtones. Just imagine, a passage to another dimension. In ancient Egyptian culture, the afterlife wasn't just a beautiful metaphor, but an entire complex universe. The pyramids we see on the surface were just the tip of the iceberg of this mysterious world. Ancient texts tell of cosmic gateways, journeys to the underworld, and heavenly paths open only to gods and pharaohs. So, when scientists stumble upon an anomaly that defies logical explanation and is located near the tombs of the kings, the question inevitably arises: was this place intended only for burial, or Did it serve something more? Perhaps for travel between worlds? Today, this mystery is securely hidden under layers of sand. Ground-penetrating radar has only revealed a keyhole, but the door itself remains locked. Excavations have already begun, but working near the Great Pyramids is no easy task. Bureaucracy, politics, the need to preserve the monuments, all this slows down the process. But it continues, and sooner or later, someone will open that door. February 20th, 1962. Astronaut John Glenn, the first American to orbit Earth, hurtles through the silent void of space in his tiny capsule, Friendship 7, traveling at nearly 28,000 kilometers per hour. And there, in orbit, Glenn witnesses a phenomenon that cannot be explained. His spacecraft is surrounded by a strange, shimmering cloud, like a living hallucination. Thousands of tiny glowing particles, seemingly alive, begin to swirl around the capsule, resembling a swarm of mysterious creatures. In his communications with Earth, he called them fireflies. He described them as miniature stars, streaking past the ship like a veritable shower, then silently disappearing into the distance. Back on Earth, in NASA's Mission Control Center, engineers held their breath, listening to his every word. No one could figure out what was happening. This phenomenon riveted everyone's attention. Were these lights a harbinger of a terrible catastrophe? Perhaps the capsule was beginning to disintegrate, or had the heat shield failed? If so, Glenn could have become the first American to die in space. Yet the glowing particles seemed almost alive. They seemed to dance and float around the capsule, creating a mesmerizing spectacle, like something out of a sci-fi movie. In the endless void of space, Glenn remained icy calm, carefully observing how the particles never once touched his ship. They simply drifted nearby, like glowing plankton in a boundless ocean of zero gravity. He reported to Mission Control that the fireflies were moving together, gliding smoothly past the portholes and flashing in unison. They remained about 2 meters apart, lining up in a glowing ribbon beneath his ship. This was more than just cosmic dust. It looked organized, alive. Later, during his flight on Aurora 7, astronaut Scott Carpenter also witnessed this stunning spectacle, observing a swarm of tiny celestial beings silently following him. After 3 orbits of the Earth, Glenn returned home safely, bringing with him this incredible mystery. Later, the official version was put forward. Glenn saw merely frozen droplets of condensation that had broken off from the capsule. NASA happily accepted this explanation, as if eager to quickly close the uncomfortable question. But many still doubt it. Were these mysterious lights simply ice crystals? Or was it something far more enigmatic? Something that our science still cannot explain. This question of the unknown accompanies humanity on its journey to the stars. But there's another, no less fundamental question. Where did we even come from? Human origins are one of the greatest mysteries to which we still have no definitive answer. A recent publication in the journal Science has caused quite a storm in the scientific world. After decades of excavations and DNA analysis, scientists have yet to agree on who or what our last common ancestor with apes was. As Sergio Almesia, lead author of the study from the American Museum of Natural History, bluntly stated, the story of human origins is full of contradictions and no one can agree. Simply put, we still don't know exactly how humans emerged. Putting aside fanciful theories about dinosaur civilizations or Martian ancestors, what does modern science tell us? It's believed that our evolutionary paths diverged from those of chimpanzees about 9 million years ago. Today, our closest living relatives are chimpanzees and bonobos. We are 99% similar to them thanks to a shared genetic code. But how? How did we evolve into a species that builds skyscrapers, debates heatedly online, and sends robots to explore Mars? For a century, paleontologists have been tirelessly searching for that elusive creature, that missing link that connects humanity to its ancient ape-like ancestors. The scientific world is abuzz with debate. One hypothesis paints a picture of a creature eerily reminiscent of modern chimpanzees, leaning heavily on its knuckles as it navigated ancient forests. Another camp of researchers looks deeper into the past, to the Miocene, suggesting that our ancestor was one of those strange, bizarre creatures, completely unlike the primates we see today. However, the work of researcher Sergio Almasager suggests that all these years we may have been looking in the wrong place. He proposes a bold idea. What if our ancestor possessed such a unique set of traits that it simply cannot be identified among the fossils found? What if this creature was so unlike anything known that its appearance eludes our understanding, limited by the fossil record? Once upon a time, a creature truly did roam this planet at a crossroads, no longer an ape, but not yet human, and to this day, no one has managed to find it. Our true ancestor, it seems, moved, climbed trees, and interacted with the world in ways modern science cannot even imagine. And until this missing link is found, the greatest mystery of human origins will remain unsolved. Now let's fast forward to the present day, but to a place no less mysterious than the prehistoric past. "10 years ago, in the icy, pitch-black Baltic Sea, two sunken treasure hunters encountered something that challenges our entire understanding of planetary history. Their sonar detected a gigantic anomaly, an object over 18 meters in diameter, resting at a depth of almost 100 meters. This perfectly round, strange structure looked completely unnatural against the seafloor, and its outline was eerily reminiscent of the legendary Millennium Falcon from the famous space saga. This discovery, later dubbed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, has become one of the most intriguing mysteries of modern times. Skeptics claim that what we see here is simply a freak of nature, a giant boulder polished by glaciers in time immemorial. But its discoverers, along with thousands of enthusiasts around the world, are convinced that it is something else, the wreckage of a complex technological device, possibly of extraterrestrial origin, that crashed and fell to Earth approximately 140,000 years ago. Imagine for a moment, what if the origins of humanity lay in an interstellar catastrophe? Would you believe that this ship was piloted by beings from a distant star system who, upon arriving on Earth, became the first Adam and Eve? This mysterious object was first observed in June 2011. Swedish divers Peter Lindberg and Dennis Osberg of the Ocean X team were combing the seabed for ancient shipwrecks in the northern Baltic when their sonar revealed something truly incredible. As Osberg later recalled in an interview, "We were stunned and confused, that's putting it mildly. The team was so shocked by what they saw that they decided to keep their discovery a secret for a while, fearing it would cause a public panic. Ultimately, they decided not to publicize the discovery. Subsequent dives and sampling efforts only fueled the fire, fueling even more rumors and speculation. Divers discovered striking details. On the surface of the object, a structure resembling steps was visible, leading somewhere inside, like an entrance. And nearby lay a second, smaller object, which also appeared man-made. It was perhaps another ship, or simply a broken-off fragment of the main vessel." Diver Stefan Hawkborn later recounted a truly mystical event. As soon as their team approached the object, all their high-tech equipment suddenly went haywire. Sonars, cameras, and even satellite phones simply stopped working. But as soon as they swam just a few hundred meters away, everything returned to normal. This led them to believe the mysterious object was emitting a powerful electromagnetic field, a property completely uncharacteristic of ordinary ancient rocks. Since 2011, countless theories have emerged. Some believe it's an ancient alien ship, while others suggest it's the remains of a secret anti-submarine device from World War II. If true, information about it is so classified that not a single record remains. More daring hypotheses suggest it could be a fragment of a lost underwater city, an alien beacon, or an artifact from a civilization that existed on Earth long before humanity. But the main mystery remains. Why does no one seem eager to conduct a full, thorough investigation of this site? All expeditions have been extremely limited, their results unclear, and questions only mount with each passing year. The annals of ancient Egyptian history have long been mired in the dark history of the Hyksos. This enigmatic dynasty, which ruled the land of the pharaohs in the mid-2nd millennium BCE, has traditionally been portrayed as a horde of brutal foreign conquerors who seized power by force. However, recent discoveries, based on the exquisite chemical analysis of tooth enamel from ancient tombs, are forcing a rewrite of this chapter of history. It turns out that this mysterious group may in fact have had indigenous origins. Research has revealed that these so-called first foreigners on the Egyptian throne actually lived on this land long before their ascension. The Hyksos were an influential force in Egyptian society for several generations before seizing the reins of power. Unfortunately, very few written sources describing their era have survived. A priest named Manetho, who lived as early as the 1st century BC, many centuries after the Hyksos expulsion, claimed that they were invaders from the northeast who invaded Egypt after the collapse of the Middle Kingdom. It was a period of chaos and turmoil, ideal for conquest. Some hieroglyphic inscriptions also speak of a conquest by the Hyksos and their dynasty. However, the authenticity of these records is highly questionable today. Subsequent pharaonic dynasties often simply destroyed the historical documents of their predecessors, unleashing a veritable propaganda machine and forever associating the Hyksos with unrest and decline. Archaeological excavations at Avaris, the ancient capital of the Hyksos, indeed indicate that their culture originated in the Middle East. According to Chris Stantis, the study's lead author, the burial rites, which were unusual for Egypt, are particularly noteworthy. Men, for example, were often buried with their bronze weapons. And excavations at another ancient Hyksos city in modern-day Sudan uncovered the remains of individuals without the sacred scarabs or amulets traditionally found among the Egyptians. Yet, despite the Hyksos being an ethnic group that arrived in Egypt through several waves of migration, enamel analysis of most of the men studied reveals that they had been living in the region long before their dynasty came to power. Moreover, many of the remains discovered belonged to women, indicating the mixed origins of the Hyksos and highlighting the important role of women in their migration. These findings completely refute the traditional image of the Hyksos as a purely military horde of invaders, and compel us to rethink their complex integration into ancient Egyptian society. Imagine the scorching savanna of Tanzania's Swaga Swaga Game Reserve. On one of those hot and dusty days, an archaeological expedition made a discovery that left them speechless. The scientists were completely baffled. They had discovered 52 ancient rock caves in the area, but one of them, codenamed Amaki 4, was strikingly different from all the others. Its walls were adorned with drawings that could only be described as extraterrestrial. 3 silhouettes with graceful, elongated bodies and heads that seemed disproportionately large for human figures were depicted on the rock face. These creatures looked more like characters from a space opera, like Deep Space Nine, than human beings. The study was led by Dr. Mija Groslik of the Polish University, a man nicknamed the Indiana Jones of prehistoric art in scientific circles. He believes these astonishing drawings may hold the key to unraveling similar works scattered throughout Tanzania. They may be the legacy of a long-lost, forgotten civilization. However, the scientist is cautiously cautious about this possibility, only suggesting it. It seems as if the ancient artist who created these images came face to face with unusual creatures, reminiscent of the characters from the old comedy film Cockheads. Unfortunately, the exact age of these cave paintings has not yet been determined. Judging by the style, the paints used, and the complete absence of large animals in the drawings, they could be anywhere from several hundred to several thousand years old. Researchers are inclined to believe that these images date back to the hunter-gatherer era, which preceded the domestication of livestock. Imagine a prehistoric world that may have existed more than 5,000 years ago. But that's not all. Alien-like figures were also discovered in 2 neighboring caves, and all these enigmatic images are connected by a mysterious line that snakes along the walls, as if describing the trajectory of an ancient cosmic dance. hidden away in the clouds in the mountains of northern Peru, lies the lost city of Cuelap, a citadel rivaling the famed Machu Picchu in grandeur. Some even claim that in its heyday, Cuelap was a far more impressive sight. Perched at a dizzying 2,700 meters above sea level, the city soared above endless valleys and misty forests stretching to the horizon. This ancient metropolis covers approximately 15 hectares, and scattered throughout this vast territory are the ruins of once majestic buildings, residential buildings, temple complexes, mighty military fortifications, and countless other structures. Much of what remains today consists of crumbling stone foundations. In its heyday, Cuelap must have looked like a city out of legend. Archaeologists have discovered over 400 round stone houses here, suggesting it was a true cloud city. And its central fortress boasted, imagine a fortress floating in the clouds. Its walls, rising to the height of a 6-story building, seemed impenetrable. This was the heart of the enigmatic Chachapoya civilization, a veritable castle in the sky that served as their political center. Around 900 AD, this culture entered its golden age, its power and influence growing for centuries. But all things come to an end. In the 15th century, the Spanish conquistadors landed on the shores of South America, and the era of the Cloud Warriors came to a tragic end. Now let's travel to the sun-baked lands of Palestine, to Mount Jericho, which towers over one of the world's most ancient cities. This place has been imbued with deep religious significance since the earliest days of Christianity and is considered sacred. There, at a dizzying height of almost 300 meters, seemingly clinging to the sheer cliffs, stands the Greek Orthodox monastery of the Temptation. The views from its walls are truly breathtaking. Before your eyes stretches a panorama of ancient Jericho and the endless expanse of the sacred Jordan River Valley. The oldest foundation stones of this monastery were laid back in the 6th century. Finding yourself here is like stepping back in time, right into the pages of the New Testament. But what gives this mountain such exceptional significance? Christian tradition holds that it was to this very peak that the devil led Jesus to subject him to his greatest temptation. Here, on the brink of the abyss, Satan attempted to seduce him from his divine path, offering him absolute power over all the kingdoms of the earth as described in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Jesus endured this spiritual battle, spending 40 days and 40 nights alone in one of the mountain's caves, and the mystical monastery built directly above this cave serves as an eternal reminder that true faith can withstand any test. Almost 1,000 years ago, the Crusaders built 2 churches here, one of which was located in this very cave. Nearly 9 centuries passed, and in the 15th century, these lands came into the possession of the Orthodox Church. A modern monastery grew up around the ancient chapel, which to this day maintains its unbreakable connection with biblical history. Now take a look at this wonder. Misfat al-Abrin, a mysterious village in Oman, built entirely of mud brick. It looks like it stepped out of an ancient legend lost among the rugged Hajar Mountains. This place still retains its pristine, almost prehistoric atmosphere. Even today, these lands are sparsely populated, only palm-fringed valleys, red cliffs, and endless plateaus stretching to the horizon. Here, in the shadow of Jebel Shams, Oman's highest mountain, hidden behind the curves of a valley known as the Grand Canyon of Arabia, lies an abandoned ancient settlement. About 300 years ago, members of the Al-Abrin tribe founded an oasis here. They accomplished the impossible. They literally carved their homes directly into the mountainside, transforming the dead, barren land into a thriving mini-Babylon in the middle of the merciless desert. These people were brilliant engineers. They created a complex system of canals to drain water from the spring. By constructing stone aqueducts through the mountains, they developed an irrigation network that transformed the lifeless wasteland into a veritable Garden of Eden. Crystal-clear pools appeared behind the walls of their adobe houses, terraced gardens spread out, and the sound of birdsong never ceased year-round. The entire village was immersed in the greenery of mango, banana, pomegranate, orange, and date trees. Misfat al-Abreen resembled an Arabian fairy tale come to life. Unfortunately, over time, the residents abandoned this place, moving to modern homes closer to the big cities. Today, this amazing oasis has become a quiet and secluded place, attracting travelers from all over the world. This is Sigiriya, an ancient fortress city in Sri Lanka, built atop a gigantic rock monolith known as Lion Rock. It rises 180 meters above the surrounding plain and has gazed proudly upon the world for over 1,500 years. It was this summit that King Kashyapa chose to build his capital. Between 477 and 495 CE, he transformed Sigiriya into his impregnable palace. Hidden in the jungle, the mountain seemed the perfect refuge. The king was convinced that no one would ever be able to capture his celestial stronghold. But, as history has shown, even the highest walls do not guarantee eternal security. His half-brother Moggallana, the legitimate heir, returned from exile in India with a vast army to reclaim the throne that Kashyapa had usurped by murdering their father. In 495, at the decisive moment of the battle, Kashyapa's army betrayed their king and abandoned him on the battlefield. Left alone, he committed suicide with his own sword. After his death, Sigiriya was abandoned, and the capital was returned to Anuradhapura. A Buddhist monastery was founded on the site of the palace, which survived for another millennium before finally disappearing from history. It was only in 1831 that the British officer Jonathan Forbes stumbled upon the overgrown ruins and rediscovered Sigiriya. For him and his crew, it was a truly incredible find. To enter the city, one had to climb a sheer cliff and pass through a gigantic gate carved in the shape of a lion's mouth. Entering this place itself seemed like a journey into a world of myths. It was as if a giant stone monster guarded the entrance to a heavenly city, and one had to pass between its paws. Unfortunately, only one giant paw of this stone guardian has survived to this day. Now let's descend from the heavens to the bowels of the earth. Before us is Balamkanche, a sacred Mayan cave located in the jungle near the famous city of Chichen Itza. It was first discovered in 1905 when explorers hacked their way through the impenetrable undergrowth, but it wasn't until 1959 that archaeologists exploring this underground sanctuary discovered a network of secret tunnels. Only then did it become clear just how colossal this cave's significance was for the Mayan civilization. All its corridors and halls were dedicated to Chak, the god of rain, considered the giver of life. His cult was so powerful that for centuries, Mayan priests descended into the dark depths of Balamkanche to make offerings and sacrifices in his honor. Today, Balamkanche is one of the most important underground archaeological sites on the planet. Its network of tunnels extends over 2 kilometers and descends 10 meters underground, opening onto gloomy depths reminiscent of nightmarish visions from the underworld. This place seems to have materialized from Mayan mythology, where such caves were considered gateways to the afterlife of Xibalba, just like in Greek myths or legends of lost cities engulfed by the Amazon rainforest. Balamkanche still retains an aura of ancient mystery and mystical terror. In the Amazonian region of Rondonia, modern technology has enabled an incredible discovery. Using LiDAR scanning, which literally sees through the forest canopy, scientists have discovered traces of a 15th century Portuguese settlement. This once thriving outpost is now completely hidden beneath the dense canopy of tropical jungle. In the past, this site was part of a vast network of colonial outposts established by Portugal to control trade routes and exploit the natural resources of South America. Beneath the vegetation, LiDAR revealed stone foundations, the remains of buildings, and defensive ditches arranged in a precise geometric progression. This demonstrates that Europeans approached colonization with cold calculation, attempting to impose their own order on a wild tropical environment. These data allow us to reconstruct a picture of the life of a community that included European masters, enslaved Africans, and indigenous peoples, all cogs in a vast machine for extracting resources for an insatiable global trade. But the harsh climate, slave rebellions, and constant conflicts with Native American tribes led to the abandonment of many such settlements. Nature quickly took its toll, consuming them without a trace. Only today, thanks to LiDAR technology, can we peer beneath the green blanket and reconstruct forgotten chapters of this land's history. Now, let's move on to the south of France. Here, archaeologists have unearthed an ancient tavern dating back over 2,100 years. This establishment, straight out of a fantasy film, dates back to the pre-Roman era and is possibly one of the oldest drinking establishments ever discovered in the Western Mediterranean. It was located near the ancient city of Latara, which flourished during the Roman conquest. Before the arrival of the Romans, the locals were simple farmers, but the conquerors brought with them new customs and crafts, including the art of tavern keeping. At first, the archaeologists who began the excavations thought they had found an ancient bakery, and indeed, over 5 years, they discovered ovens, millstones, and everything necessary for baking bread. But it was the discovery of a charcoal hearth, earthen benches for patrons, and fish bones littering the kitchen floor that revealed the true purpose of this place. It was a real tavern where locals once gathered to drink wine, sing songs, and enjoy steaming pots of fish and roast meat. But in other parts of the ancient world, the relationship between humans and animals was far more bizarre. In ancient Egypt, for example, baboons occupied a very special status. Some were something like service animals or living symbols of wealth and status, but others were considered sacred and dedicated to the god Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, who was often depicted with the head of a baboon. For centuries, the Egyptians imported these primates, kept them in captivity, and mummified them after death to ensure their eternal life in the afterlife. Here, in the depths of history, are hidden astonishing secrets. Imagine burials where animals are buried alongside humans, revealing details of the culture and beliefs of a long-vanished world. But for primatologist and anthropology professor Nathaniel Domin, the main question wasn't the mere presence of baboon mummies, but the mystery of their origin. In an interview with Life Science, he shed light on an ancient enigma. The pharaohs of Egypt left irrefutable evidence that they didn't breed these sacred animals themselves, but imported them from afar, from a mysterious, almost mythical land they called Punt. What was this place? A real kingdom, or just a beautiful legend? Numerous ancient texts attest to its existence. Egyptian papyri extolled Punt as the land of the gods, describing its unimaginable riches, precious incense, pure gold, ebony, ivory, and unseen exotic animals. For centuries, scholars struggled with maps, trying to determine the location of this legendary land, but its exact location remained elusive. Until recently. The breakthrough came thanks to modern technology. Professor Domin and his team used sophisticated isotopic analysis. They collected tissue samples from modern baboons and compared their chemical composition with data obtained from 7 ancient mummies. This was the key to the mystery. 5 of these mummies dated to the Ptolemaic era, which began after 330 BCE and apparently had been born and raised in captivity on Egyptian soil. But the other 2 mummies, dating to the New Kingdom, told a completely different story. Their isotopic signature pointed to lands known today as Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Somalia, a region known as the Horn of Africa. Domin's analysis led to a stunning conclusion. The legendary land of Punt was most likely located along the southern coast of the Red Sea, encompassing the territories of modern-day Somalia and Eritrea. Although a definitive verdict will require time and further evidence, all the collected evidence points to this hypothesis. Researchers are closer than ever to erasing the last blank spot of antiquity from the world map and solving the great mystery of the land of Punt. Let's now move to another continent. North America holds no less mysteries in its rocks and legends, forcing us to rethink the entire history of humanity. Here, among canyons and deserts, lives the Hopi people, one of the most ancient cultures, who for millennia passed on their secret knowledge not on papyrus, but by word of mouth, from generation to generation. And their story is astounding. Unlike most civilizations, who believe their gods descended from the heavens, Hopi legends speak of powerful beings who came from the very depths of the earth. These beings weren't aliens from outer space like the Sumerian Anunnaki. They emerged from the depths of the planet like creatures of the underworld. Hopi legends hold that our Earth is a living, multi-layered organism. And at its center dwells a mysterious people, the Ant People, or Anu, intelligent, humanoid creatures with slender antennae, whose images we can still see in ancient Arizona rock art. According to Hopi belief, we are now living in a fourth world. The three previous ones were wiped off the face of the earth by global catastrophes caused by the vices and mistakes of humanity itself. One world burned in a cosmic fire, another was frozen in the ice of a great glaciation, and a third was engulfed by the waters of a merciless flood. And each time, when civilization stood on the brink of total annihilation, those very same ant people emerged from underground. They came to the aid of the righteous, leading the chosen ones to their underground cities, where they could wait out the cataclysms raging above ground. Legends say that it was these underground saviors who gave people food, taught them how to store supplies, and, when the catastrophe receded, helped restore life on the devastated planet. The Hopi believed that the last such catastrophe was the Great Flood. This myth of a global flood that destroyed almost all life is familiar to everyone. It runs through many cultures, from the Bible and the Epic of Gilgamesh to countless legends across the globe. The Hopi idea of the earth as a kind of womb with secret entrances to the underworld echoes both Buddhist myths about the city of Agartha and Native American legends about the city of lizardmen, supposedly located deep beneath modern-day Los Angeles. Moreover, the Hopi speak of an incredibly advanced civilization that existed on Earth before all these events. They believed that the world was once ruled by a global community that created Potawopa, flying shields. These amazing craft allowed their owners to travel vast distances, soar silently through the skies, and unleash destructive force on their enemies. Doesn't that sound eerily familiar? Essentially, they were what we would today call UFOs. According to legend, the possessors of this technology misused their power, incurring the wrath of the gods and causing a global catastrophe. This story is strikingly similar to the myths of the Nephilim, who corrupted the world before the biblical flood, or the legend of Atlantis, which the gods drowned for the hubris of its inhabitants. Perhaps the Hopi are the keepers of true knowledge about a civilization that existed before the Great Flood. And perhaps every ancient culture known to us is just a miraculously surviving fragment of a world that rose from the ashes of a global apocalypse. At the beginning of 2019, the sands of Egypt once again created a sensation. Archaeologists and workers at Gebel el-Silsila, near Aswan, stumbled upon 3 gigantic 5-meter-tall statues of ram-headed sphinxes. This discovery became yet another striking testimony to the former grandeur of this ancient civilization. The sandstone sculptures, over 3,000 years old, were found in an abandoned quarry, an ancient open-air workshop. Experts still cannot say for sure why work on them was suddenly stopped, but the most plausible theory is that the order was cancelled. Maria Nilsson, the archaeologist directing the excavations, believes the statues were carved towards the end of the reign of Amenhotep III, grandfather of the famous Pharaoh Tutankhamun. It's quite possible he commissioned the work, but his death interrupted the grandiose project, and the unfinished statues remained in the quarry for millennia. Gebel el-Silsila was more than just a quarry, but an entire workers' town. This is confirmed by discoveries in the local cemetery, where the remains of men, women, and children who lived during the 18th dynasty were discovered. In recent years, other astonishing discoveries have been made here. For example, a statue of a powerful married couple carved directly into the rock, and nearby, in what is now Sudan, scientists discovered a flooded mass grave filled with human bones. This tomb, now underwater, contained the remains of more than 20 people, a third of them children. The skeletons of adult men bore the terrible marks of their lives, traces of incredible strain on the spine and numerous fractures indicating extreme physical labor. However, they were buried with due respect, suggesting they were not slaves. What tragedy brought them all to the same grave? This mystery remains unsolved. Egyptologists believe that the very discovery of their names and remains after thousands of years carries profound religious significance, symbolizing the eternal life so dreamed of by the ancient Egyptians. Amarna. This name refers to one of the most ancient archives of international diplomacy. Imagine a unique collection of 382 clay tablets dating back to the 14th century BC. These priceless documents lift the veil of secrecy on the correspondence between the powerful pharaohs of Egypt and their rivals, the kings of Babylon, Assyria, the Hittites, and Mitanni. And in these letters, we see not dry political reports, but strikingly vivid human emotions unfolding against a backdrop of fierce rivalry and complex negotiations. The kings discussed dynastic marriages and the exchange of princesses, concluded trade deals, and even didn't hesitate to express their dissatisfaction with Egypt's power. One letter, for example, contains a complaint from the junior wife of one of the rulers. She laments that she was promised 2 pure gold statues as a gift, but was instead sent cheap wooden imitations covered only with a thin layer of gilding. These letters laid the foundation for the first rules and protocols for interstate communication in history, creating the so-called Amarna system. This system fostered equality between the great powers of the time, creating a platform for dialogue. The letters always began with formal greetings, in which the rulers, if of equal status, addressed each other as brother. This diplomatic system functioned successfully for over 2 centuries, maintaining relative peace and stability in the region. The tablets span the reigns of several pharaohs of the 18th dynasty, including Amenhotep, Akhenaten, and possibly even Tutankhamun. They were discovered in the 1880s in pits beneath the ruins of an administrative building and were immediately recognized as a true treasure. Written in Akkadian cuneiform, they are primarily letters addressed to the pharaoh, and only a few were written in his name. Now let's fast forward to a later era, to the time when Egypt became a province of mighty Rome, less than 2 millennia ago. In the vast city of the dead, the necropolis of Saqqara, a woman named Demetria was buried. Her richly decorated tomb has now become the center of groundbreaking discoveries. A joint expedition of Egyptian and Japanese archaeologists discovered the burial in 2019. Inside, beautifully preserved reliefs depict Demetria herself in a white dress, holding a juicy bunch of grapes. Beside her is her pet, the species of which has not yet been identified. Egyptian and Roman historian Roger Bagnall took on the translation of the Greek inscriptions adorning the tomb walls. One read, "Demetria, daughter of Minaus, granddaughter of Ammonia, a fitting farewell." Bagnall believes that the fact that the grandmother is mentioned but the grandfather is not may indicate that he was considered illegitimate, and his name was omitted from the epitaph. Another relief depicts the ancient Egyptian gods Thoth and Anubis, and next to it is the inscription, "Minaus, son of Philemon, serves and honors." Bagnall noted a striking detail. The word serves was used, the rare term therapeisis, which denoted service to the gods, not to humans. Inside the tomb, the team also discovered the remains of a mummy, several small statues, and 2 elegant cat figurines hidden under a layer of gold leaf.